Good morning, everyone. Morning, everybody. Now, raise your hands if you like the title of my sermon, The Composition of Change. Awesome. Okay, so I named it that way. I named the title that way because I am the music director of this church. So before I start with the message, let me tell you just a little bit about music theory. Music is a lot like taking on a journey. So music will often start with a melodic theme in its home key. But like I said earlier, it's like a journey. So often it will leave its home key to find a different key. In your case, perhaps you may have been home and you might be taking a walk to the beach. And then that afternoon, you might be interested in going to the amusement park with your family. But then you go back home. And then there are times when you want to travel afar, so you're sightseeing, and you might find yourself taking on a detour that may resemble something like this. And then all of a sudden, you're thinking to yourself, I have no idea where I am completely lost. But eventually you long to be home, and you will find your way back home. Then you sit on your couch and you go, I'm home. So they say life is a lot like taking a journey. Life is full of ups and downs, ins and outs, twists and turns, and everything always changes. Nothing stays the same. I know I like to talk about change a lot of the times. Hey, John, can you spare me some change?
Sure. I just changed my mind.
Well, okay, I didn't expect to hear that. I actually liked him. Maybe he doesn't like me as much as I like him. I don't know. But, or if you're a mother, like me, you may say to your son, hey, Ben, can you get changed? Or, you better change your attitude, young man. Actually, I don't think I have ever had to say that to him, but I'm ready just in case. But we're not really here to talk about these kinds of changes, are we? We are here to talk about questions like, will my circumstance ever change? Will she change? Will I change? Will this church change? One thing is guaranteed, though. Just as soon as you get used to something, it's going to change. No question about it. So let me put this into some perspectives. I moved here in Beverly of 1998, August to be exact. On August 31st, the CNN headline, money headline, came up with an article that said, quote, sell-off wiped out all of Wall Street's gains for the year and left market experts wondering if the unprecedented bull market of the 90s has finally met its end. That day, the Dow closed at 7,839, and the NASDAQ closed at 1,499. Now, here today in 2021, the Dow is above 35,000, and the NASDAQ is up over 1,000% to about 15,000. What seemed like a catastrophic change in 1998 turned out to be the beginning of a huge run in the markets. Or think about this. In January of 1998, the gas price, I think, was 79 cents per gallon, and the carton of egg was about $1. Now, today, some parts in California, the gas price is $8 per gallon. Now, that is some serious change, let me tell you. And then since I came here, we've seen the W2K, you know, how the world was going to end. Then there's the dot-com boom, dot-com bust, housing boom, housing bust, housing boom again. We've had Republicans, Democrats, the first black president, then a Republican, and now a Democrat. And that's just since I got here in 1998. Now, I'm not exactly a young spring chicken anymore, like I was when I first got here. And I see that just by looking around the room, I see quite a few people who haven't been spring chickens in a very, very long time. I mean, when John Thompson grew up, we didn't even have cars. And I can only imagine some of the changes the rest of you must have seen here on this earth. Now, these days, everybody is talking about COVID-19. But you know, that's not the first pandemic this world has ever seen. And let me tell you, it will not be the last. We had the Spanish flu, I believe it was 1918, that literally wiped out 50 million people. But you know, just because that isn't the first time the human race has been afflicted with sickness, that doesn't make it any easier. During our recent pandemic, we here at First Baptist Church have found a way for our church life to continue through online worship services, music, and other ministries. We have made a pledge to serve our church families and our community through, for example, food pantry and other causes that may need our services. Our adaptability, in my opinion, comes from our values, beliefs, and most importantly, our faith. Yes, our faith. No matter what happens, our church has made a pledge to serve during the good times and through the unfortunate circumstances to better the world. I am very, very appreciative for the ways our church has stepped up during these tough times. Pandemics, earthquakes, hurricanes, floods. The truth is that we live in a world of constant change. But sometimes, you know, we really want it faster the better. Anything to distract us from the moment that we live in. You can't wait for Christmas. I can't wait for Lobster Fest. I couldn't wait for my trip to Puerto Rico, got stuck there because the Spirit airline decided to have an unexpected strike and wouldn't change my plane ticket back to Boston till 3 days later. And the world also promises change. Did you know that? And sometimes we really like it. Do this and you will lose weight. Do that and you will find a date. I got this frying pan right here. Not to cook. Buy this frying pan, all right? And you can drill a hole in it, blast it with a sandblaster, and the eggs still won't stick, all right? You can buy, I also have this nice flashlight. You can buy this flashlight, you can freeze it in a block of ice, burn it with fire, and then run over it with your car, and it will still work as good as new. Things like that. So with all our puffing and huffing, pulling and pushing and waiting and wanting, our world doesn't provide any real answers how to deal with the changes that face us. A new flashlight is great, but it doesn't light up the important places. In fact, a lot of the times, the world doesn't offer solutions to deal with darkness and fear that sometimes exists in places like in our hearts. because of change. Fear that exists in places like our souls, in our souls, that we don't talk about. So then, what does the Bible say about change? Well, you know, the Bible talks a lot about change, and big, huge changes too. Nothing like the ones that I've seen here since I moved here in 1998. We are talking about life-altering changes, life-giving changes. In the beginning, in the Bible, we learned that in the beginning, there was literally nothing. And then God created all. Genesis 1, verse 1, chapter 1, verse 1 says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters." Did you catch that? I caught that. The Spirit of God was hovering over the earth. But even before the earth, there was God. John chapter 1, verse 1 says, "In the beginning," which means before there was anything, "was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He," meaning Jesus, the Word, "was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him, nothing was made that has been ever made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness shall not overcome it." Now that's a lot of change, but that was a long, long time ago. What does that got to do with us today? John 3, chapter 3, verse 16, one of my favorite Bible verses says, "For God so loved the world that he has made, that he gave his one and only Son, Jesus, the light of the world," according to what we just read, "that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life." Now, if you ask me, that's the most important change you can ever experience. It's the fundamental change that changes everything. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8 says, "For by grace you have been saved by faith, and this is not your own doing. It is a gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one may boast." In other words, we are saved by the grace through faith. And that faith is a gift from God. But where does it come from, and how do we get faith? Romans chapter 1, verse 20 says, "For since the creation of God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, have clearly been seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse." I thought about that verse for a long time, and in my opinion, that verse, to me, is the key to the puzzle of faith. We don't manufacture faith. You don't just make it up. Faith is revealed to us by the very lives we have been given, the life you are living right now in this world through creation, this very moment. Just look around the room. Look and see, touch and taste, breathe and feel the presence of God right here in this very room. So, it all comes down to this. What do we do? Where do we go? What can we really do in the midst of changes that befall us? Our scripture this morning comes from James chapter 1, verse 17, which says that every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. That verse says that our God, the creator of all things, is never changing. He is where our hope comes from in the world that sometimes crumbles beneath our feet. So, if God is never changing, and if Jesus is our light in the darkness, then the answer to the faith puzzle lies in what we already know to be true inside our hearts. You know that stirring in your hearts? The feelings, the emotions takes over. You feel joy, you feel sadness, pain, and fear. When we are humbled by the changes that take place in our lives, the voice we hear in our hearts is the voice of God calling us to Him. The voice we hear in our hearts is where the hope can rest. You know, God created us to be intuitive beings, and the order of things are pretty self-explanatory. From the tiniest piece of DNA to the massive expanse of the heavens, every cell has its nucleus, and every heart seeks its center. And this center is where the light can shine. The world we live in can sometimes be noisy and chaotic, but our hearts can really rest if we just block out the unnecessary noise of the world and listen within ourselves. We have talked a lot about change today, and I want to bring our time together to a close by actually experiencing what it is that we have been talking about this morning. In just a minute, I will be playing a short piano piece for you called Verlies by Ludwig van Beethoven. And as I play, I would like you to hear the overlapping of tones and harmonies, the themes and melodies, and the changes in spirit. But hear them as if they were actual versions of emotions for what is happening to you right now in your life today. And as each emotion comes through, let them rise through the backdrop of the discoveries that we have been talking about today. Because those emotions are the gem of faith that have been given to us. Their very existence is proof that God's light exists in our lives. So my hope is that this music will help you to understand and visualize the manifestation of all the changes that we all experience on our life journeys. To be sure, the colors and shades of change in our lives can be dramatic, and you will see that in my playing. But through it all, we have the promise of experiencing the light of God's love through faith. And when the final chord of this piece has been reached, I hope you will feel in your heart the steadfastness of God's love and grace.